Hi, my name is Sheila. Welcome to the video. In this video, we are going to be looking at Billy Evans' letter to the court. Now, hopefully you've already seen part one of the letter because it was a really long letter. It was a personal letter, and I am breaking it up into sections. This is part two. If you haven't seen part one, you may want to go ahead and go back to that video, check out part one so that you will be listening to the videos in order. Now, ahead of her sentencing hearing, Elizabeth Holmes had not over, I think it was 130. I should get my numbers right. But I think it was 130 letters that were sent to the judge. So let's check into Billy's letter, part two. This was actually the beginning of the letter that I read in part one, and we went through the how we began section. So, like I said, if you missed that, then go ahead and take a look at that. In this particular video, we're going to be looking at the section titled Dreams, Lessons, Possibilities. One constant subject of our conversation in those early days was our dreams for what was possible, our dreams of the future that which we hoped to build. I was working for a company with lofty goals, trying to solve an important social problem with novel hardware technology. The similarities between Theranos and my business were many. We both had shared experiences of late nights spent with engineering teams, fierce dedication to a meaningful mission despite odds greatly stacked against success, and the many other difficulties that accompany hardware companies in Silicon Valley. Learning about her mission and the real why behind Theranos inspired me. Her innocence and identity had been taken from her at Stanford. She had set out to dedicate her life to one of continued service, to rebuild her identity through a life worth living, sacrificing herself by building a life inextricably tied to seeing her vision for access to healthcare through. In early 2018, while her company was in its death throes, she seemed sure that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, that the business would make it. Liz has always approached life through the lens of what is possible. It shows up in all sorts of ways. She approaches hard problems and easy alike, constantly in search of a solution and with a belief in doing what most others would deem impossible. Earlier this year, while pregnant, she decided she wanted to swim the Golden Gate Bridge. There were 50 reasons I thought that was a bad idea: the sharks, the tides, her complete inexperience swimming post age 14. Liz swam as a child, her only event being short distance breaststroke. She was determined to make miles long open water swim, having never swam any significant distance or in open water before. But her goal was set. In her mind, she could do it. While I would never discourage her from attempting such a feat, I knew the odds were slim. She trained daily in the pool, and trips to the ocean for a swim were frequent. Vacations to the beach left me sitting on shore, watching her orange cap get swallowed by swell after swell as she would slowly cross sharky water. But she got faster, the breaststroke improved. Rain or shine, she practiced, and her determination was overpowering the odds against her. 2 weeks before the event, she made the cutoff time, swimming the breaststroke. I was wrong. You would think by now I would learn to not discount her perseverance. When our dog Balto had been carried away by a mountain lion from our front porch, Liz had faith that he could still be alive. She searched for 16 hours in brambles and poison oak to find him. It was only once she saw his lifeless body that she could come to realize that he was gone. It crushed her. I knew he was dead in those long, drawn out hours, searching. But her certainty and the possibility of his survival gave me a sense of hope. But that's Liz for you. She's constantly hoping and working towards the best outcome, even if it is unlikely. She believes deeply in the goodness of the world and all those around her. She is deeply guided by faith. Okay, so there you have part two of his letter, where I guess, I mean, it's dreams, lessons, and possibilities. I'm not sure that I saw all of that in there. I'm trying to think. I guess maybe he was talking, he mentioned at the very beginning the piece about dreams and possibilities. I think the bigger picture that he was trying to get across was the lesson that he learned about who she was, number one, and that she always saw the possibilities and was always thinking something could be done. So, again, his perspective of her is, as they live their daily life. If you're used to being around someone who is a type A, she sounds like she might be a type A. He talked about that perseverance. He talked about seeing her orange cat. He talked about her having never really done long distance swimming like that, and the obstacles that she would face with that. And yet she continued, he said, every day to go out there and practice and continue to try to get better. So in his mind, that's probably how he's framing the Theranos debacle, I guess I could call it. In his mind, he's thinking, she just got up every day and went to work. She had a mission, a goal. He talked about that. And that's what kept her moving forward. This sort of faith that I can do this. I just have to keep working at it. I just have to continue to believe and then do the work. And that is, I think, how, he was better able to sort of align the Theranos Elizabeth with the partner Elizabeth, because in part one, he said he had trouble putting putting this other Elizabeth into, I guess, the life that they were crafting together. And then the other piece he talked about, I think, was another thing that helped him get past some of the media vilification that he talked about in part one, was they sort of had a shared experience, right? So he understood, her being in an environment where it's a technology startup and you're going to have failures, and you're going to struggle, and it's very likely that you will never even accomplish what it is you're trying to do. They're going to be late nights and you're going to be working with the engineers. And I think that piece, them sort of having that shared, not together experience, but having experienced similar lifestyles, work lifestyles, I think that helped him, sort of say, okay, so I can understand that part of her. Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about his perspective, let's just sort of critique this just a little bit. You've probably heard some conversation about the bro culture, the technology culture dominated by, men of a certain age and of a certain lifestyle. You can see some of that when you hear Elon Musk and what happened when he sent, the directive to his employees: you're either on board with this or you're out. This sort of mentality that you got to be all in and you got to be willing and ready to sacrifice for the good of this startup or this technology company or the mission. You got to be all in, or else, and so if you're around that culture, you start to believe that that's sort of the norm, and so people who understand that culture with you, that's your norm, and it becomes a little easier to say, oh, okay, that's okay. The problem though is she did more than just get up and persevere and try again and try again and try again and try again. She lied to other people as she was trying again. Most companies, sure, they don't want to share the negativity that's going on. They don't want to share, the third quarter where things are looking really, really down, because then they know, it's like, oh, but if we just get to the fourth quarter, we just get to the fourth quarter. They don't want to share the first quarter results after things tank, especially if you're in the retail sector. And so, sure, nobody wants to share the bad stuff, even beyond just companies. When we start to talk about individuals and what we put on social media, a lot of times people don't want to share the intimate details. They don't want to share the things that are hard. They don't want to share the struggles and the challenges. Well, companies are pretty much the same way, because guess what? They're run by individuals. And those traits and characteristics that we have with us as people, we don't leave them at home when we go to work. They're with us when we go to work. So she didn't want to share bad news. Who wants to share bad news? Most people don't want to share bad news. And that's me saying my thoughts about her. I don't think she wanted to share good news, bad news. And so you have to sort of keep that in perspective when you're saying, oh, we were in the same sort of place together. Because you kind of were, but then you kind of weren't, because she was, you know, just the whole level of fraud that was going on there. All right, so that's me critiquing and breaking down the second part of Billy Evans' letter. If this brings you more understanding to sort of put things a little bit more in perspective, then go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. And don't forget to check out part one if you haven't checked that out already. But also check out part three as we break up Billy Evans' letter to the court for Elizabeth Holmes' sentencing. And peace. Mwah.